My friend, I need you to see this, because I'm here to show you the first real gameplay of the most wishlisted game on Steam, and I'm more and more convinced it holds that position for a pretty darn good reason. City building, map management, warfare. Buzzwords we can all relate to, I'm sure, but here's the really unfathomably awesome stuff about Manor Lords. See this little patch of dirt and hopeful gang of medieval pioneers? Well, this is them now. No wait, this is them now. See these fields of black soil? Well, treat them right and they grow food in real time, sowed 1 month and reaped another. Perhaps you're more of a vegetable grower, or do you prefer keeping chickens? Maybe hunting is your thing, or do you like taking walks with the oxen? Do you build churches, or indeed march to war? Perhaps both? If so, you might be a Crusader King, but it's actually more likely that you are a Manor Lord, because all of this is what you'll find yourself doing in what's shaping up to be a revolution in city builder tactical strategy. Because I mean, as much as I love this, gazing at my creation, watching the sun come down, go up, or be completely gone, either by the darkness of night, never-ending torrential rain, or the snow of winter, I have to say, and I never thought I'd say this, there's something uniquely banging about watching peasants fighting peasants. Do you see this shit? I kid you not, on top of all of this, Manor Lords is by and large developed over the course of 7 years by just one person named Greg Manor Lords. I mean, you'd think so, right? When you see how much passion and second nature skill that must have gone into crafting this stuff. So, you're curious about Manor Lords and are either just finding out about it and feel insanely lucky that you didn't have to wait a lifetime for this, or you're like me, and you've been waiting very patiently, might I add, for this game to come. So what is Manor Lords really? And just how have I been able to do anything else in the past few days? Well, I'm about to show you, and I haven't. You know that feeling of starting a new city builder? That sense of wonder and excitement for what's to come? Those first few seconds where you're just sitting in the grass and taking in the freedom of just, nature? Well, my first moments of Manor Lords were more about being completely taken aback by how juicy everything looked. But what truly struck me after not just 10 minutes, but half an hour, 2 hours, and even 10, was just how Manor Lords really feel like it's taking its time, as if it doesn't want to rush you or constantly shove new things in your face to keep you entertained. That's because it kinda knows that it doesn't have to. I mean, the thing about city builders to me is that I always feel like they kind of have a weird curve, where things are rather simple in the beginning, so simple that you think you know everything and it's the born city planner, but then you rapid fire ahead and bite over so much more than you can chew, until just a few minutes later, when your entire production chain is out of whack, your population is angry and dying of starvation or something, and you find yourself starting a new game. But the thing about Manor Lords is that, at least so far, it's never done that. At least to the extent where I have to throw in the towel because it's overwhelmed me. And I don't think that's because it's too easy. I mean, I've played on normal so far, and you can certainly up the difficulty if you want to. But it's because Manor Lords does something almost no other city builder and strategy game does. It takes its time. It feels realistic and oozes immersion. To the point where if I had to compare it to another game, it wouldn't be another city builder at all. It would be Kingdom Come Deliverance, a game in a completely different genre. But both of these games are set in a Central European setting, both use Unreal Engine to beautify their world, and both put heavy emphasis on appearing realistic, authentic, and immersive, and importantly, having a slow and steady, but nevertheless fun and meticulous approach to gameplay. And I think that as a city builder, this is very new. At least to the extent Manor Lords seem to go all in on an experience full of ambience, detail, and consequence. What struck me at first is how Manor Lords' use of time and pacing works, because even though we've certainly had seasons go by in other games as well, I've never felt quite the same as right here. First of all, and to go on a tiny tangent because it's important, Manor Lords doesn't take place on some abstract island or universe with starkly varying biomes. There is no combination of temperate environments with blazing deserts, tropical seas, and freezing snowy mountains here. Rather, we find ourselves in what's essentially a fairly generic European countryside. It's flat for the most part, but a few hills and rivers dot the landscape. Fields and forests are the mainstay, reaching all the way to the untouchable mountains in the distance. Importantly, you can tell that Manor Lord's vibe and aesthetic is consistent. It feels like you're actually in one region at all times, despite this map being divided into several regions or zones of control, if you will. But the only thing that separates regions really are where their resources are located and the fertility of the land, which actually has a big impact on how capable you are of farming, and farming well, and which crops you actually can farm. Either way, we're talking about nature and time here. And well, keeping with that sense of actually being in a place, so does the passing of time help to convey that. The seasons are crucial in Manor Lords, and they stay consistent across the map. If you didn't know already, there are 12 months in a year, and in Manor Lords, this cycle from January through December is translated into days. Now that might sound strange, but I'm actually very impressed with how it works. Each day in-game from one sunset to the next lasts 25 real-life minutes, which is quite a lot, and it makes it so that each month, not to mention season, feels like its very own time of year. This is important because each season comes with its own modifiers that impact the game. Like when your people reap and sow, whether berry picking is a viable means of gathering food, how much fuel is spent on keeping homes warm, and how much it rains, which can damage your supplies if left outside to soak. During my first few hours in Manor Lords, I was honestly so often taken aback by how consistently beautiful everything looked. Now I'm generally a summer guy myself, so taking in this green and luscious landscape was a real treat. And just like in real life, I always look forward to the next time I get to see my town bask in the warmth of the sunlight. But autumn isn't half bad either. I mean, look at these deep, rich reds. But when it rains, it often truly pours, and when it does, winter isn't far away, bringing with it snow and, importantly, a more difficult time if you haven't properly prepared your harvest. A core component of the city builder is that each stepping stone builds on another. You're always stacking accomplishments to reach the next one. Manor Lords is so far no different in this respect, and makes use of tried and true tropes like the fact that manufactured goods requires lower tier resources to make. In other words, you can't just create ale out of nowhere. For that, you need to assign people to work in a tavern, people who make use of the malt resource, which itself comes from barley which must be sowed and harvested by farmers assigned to a farmhouse who spend the spring and summer clearing the fields and sowing, to spending the autumn months harvesting the stuff. All of this takes time, and all of it diverts your most important resource, your people, from other tasks you might want to finish. In the end, the people are what reaps that harvest, builds that church, who occupy the market stalls and make up your levy. But people aren't just individuals in Manor Lords, they're divided into families. And when you assign a worker to a project, you assign the whole family unit there. Your population counts not just the number of total individuals and their status based on the level of their home, but indeed the number of families that either are assigned to a specific vocation or families that are unassigned. Equally important, since the latter aids with construction and the transportation of resources to construction projects. And after a while, if a family has worked long enough on the same job and accumulate goods, they will take those goods to the local market and do their best to distribute those goods to the other families in your village. This is what in the end allows each household to become sufficient in needs and amenities, which in turn raises your approval rating and ultimately attracts new families to your town. So far, I find that this system feels natural, but what you must pay attention to, which I find myself forgetting when focusing on other matters, is that the only way to attract new families, no matter your approval rating, is to have available homes. Manor Lords very much subscribes to the philosophy of if you build it, they will come. And this is important to remember if you wish to grow your population at a steady rate. Indeed, population is important for another thing, namely defending yourself against bandits or other threats. And as with every other aspect of Manor Lords, recruiting units isn't just about pressing a button and having an army of heavily armored soldiers at the ready, but follows that same progression structure as elsewhere. First of all, you need the crucial resource of able-bodied men to fill the ranks of your chosen infantry unit. Then you need the actual weapons and armor, manufactured by your industries. Industries which, by the way, are run by artisans. Artisans which are tied to the very families you raise. And third, when you finally raise your levy, all the men going off to war are taken away from the workforce, meaning that while you're off fighting, the women of your town will be doing all the work at home. And with half the population gone, you must also expect slower production and construction rates while on your campaign. This is the kind of realism and attention to detail I live for, and even though I've yet to truly fight any major wars or large-scale battles, it still gives me that sense of danger, because knowing that if any of your men die in battle, they will be permanently removed from the workforce, meaning that warfare has a real impact on your economy no matter what you do. Indeed, this is partially what's making warfare in Manor Lords so intense. Not only does it look freaking awesome seeing your men march forward, but you can somehow feel the real weight behind every unit. And when they finally clash with the enemy, man, I've never felt anything quite like it. I mean, I'm not joking when I'm saying this, but my first battle in Manor Lords, which was 18 units of my own peasant levies versus 16 enemy bandits, it managed to be more intense than any new Total War battle I've played in the past decade. And this is why. These sounds of the environment, the ambient sound of soldiers yelling and shouting, the weapons intense hitting armors and shields, and vitally, the knowledge that all of these men are your people, irreplaceable as they are, and, despite being part of a unit, are individuals who belong to families and have jobs at home. That makes even smaller skirmishes like these that much more intense, and that much more important. What I'm so happy about though is how immersive even the battle system is, even at this early stage. Every unit has a number of conditions, variables, orders, and formations tied to them. For example, my levy was tired after running and walking a long distance to the bandit camp. So in preparation, I had them rest up and then put them in a defensive position, allowing them to make use of their large shields against the bandits, many of whom didn't even have shields to protect them. This first battle ended in a heroic victory, with absolutely no casualties on my end and a bandit camp which I could now loot and bring its wealth back into my pockets. But we have other types of units as well, of course, like archers who are deadly and can take out an enemy unit before they even reach you. Or you can hire mercenaries if you have the gold for it and keep that male population of yours from fighting at all. And now I suddenly understand those medieval Italian city-states a lot more. But the gist of your levy follows the same structure as elsewhere. People are needed, resources are required to make different types of weapons and armor, and you choose which types of units you want, whose ranks need to be filled and armed accordingly. I am truly loving this system so far because, well, like most other aspects of Manor Lords, it appears realistic, immersive, and most of all, it's so much fun. And if there's one thing that's been important to my Manor Lords experience thus far, it's just how fun it's been and how addicted I've become even at this early stage, and when taking into account that this is an early access game, whose pros and cons I'll be going over in much more detail in my review of the game later on. But I have to say, after more than 20 hours under my belt in this very first iteration, I am amazed, shocked even, just how much Manor Lords has captivated me, and how I long to return to the countryside even as I'm speaking these words. For more on Manor Lords, make sure to stay right here on the channel, and let me know what you think of what we've seen thus far. Do remember to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers!